Namaste. Welcome to Chiti Media. I'm Kamal Madi Shetty, your host for today, and this is the Current Affairs Show. Mallikarjun Kharge is the new president of the Congress party. The 80-year-old won against Shashi Tharoor by securing over 80 to 90% of the votes that were cast. Now, the Congress party has hailed this as a demonstration of its internal party democracy. But many have pointed out that by going with somebody like Mallikarjun Kharge, given his age and background as a loyalist of the Gandhi family, the Congress party's mother son duo is back to their formula of controlling the party through a proxy. Now, what does this development mean for the future of the Congress party, and what does it mean for the Indian political landscape in general? We are going to discuss this and also a number of other interesting political developments in India, including the recent decision of KCR, the Chief Minister of Telangana, to enter national politics, much like Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal. We're also going to talk about some policy changes in Northeast India. And to do this, we have a very special guest, somebody who is a very well known political analyst. He is author of the best selling book, The Battle of Saraigat, as well as advisor to the Honorable Chief Minister of Manipur. We have with us Rajat Sethi ji. Namaste, Rajat ji. Welcome to Chiti Media. Thank you for joining us on this show. Rajat ji, yesterday, Mallikarjun Kharge, after his election, said that at a time when, according to him, the country's democracy is weakening, he says that his election as the president of the Congress party is something that strengthens India's democracy. How do you respond to that?
Well, it is a delta improvement in that direction, I would say. Um, Howsoever microsemal, infinitely small this step would be, but at least it is in that democratic direction overall. So, to that extent, I agree with Khargeji. But look at the farcical election. I mean, the whole country largely understands and realizes that this was a farcical exercise to sort of bring in somebody at the helm who could continue with the status quo and could continue with the de facto leadership of the Gandhis, at least for the next couple of years, till he holds on to the mantle. And I think in a couple of years, Rahul Gandhi, if he feels that some of the elections that are coming, if Congress does good, he might take the mantle back and carry on as the president. So
Great.
it's just like a night watchman sort of a situation for Mr. Kharge.
That is a very interesting way of looking at it, Rajat ji. Now, Mr. Kharge's supporters say that he is very experienced, he's on the ground, etc., and therefore can bring about a lot of change. Now, how do you look at the prospects for change in the Congress party? What sort of things could happen with Mr. Kharge as the president?
So, Kamalji, let's discuss about the de jure leadership or presidency that Mr. Kharge is going to offer. Now, look at the problem where Congress is finding itself. First, the kind of issues that Congress has been relating to or trying to address are largely woke issues. You constantly see Rahul Gandhi talking about these philosophical issues, like Hindutva versus Hinduism. On the other side, he talks about idea of India being a string of states put together, wherein the parts are more important than the whole. So these philosophical woke related debates, which have zero resonance with the public, was where the problem of Congress was, in my opinion. Whenever Congress has tried to focus on real issues, real anti-incumbency in the state level, and they have yielded good results for the party. Be it Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, they have done well, at least in the previous election. So what I feel is that if Mr. Kharge, he can ask Rahul Gandhi to shut his mouth, do more one-on-one meetings, do what he's good at, and not focus giving these hyperbolic statements around India's democracy index and where is the country headed on Hinduism versus Hindutva debates and all of that, and keep the focus on issues that actually matter. That would be a small victory for him. It will be very difficult taming Rahul Gandhi would be hard for him. But keep this in mind that the ailment of Congress party that needs to be diagnosed first. What are the issues? That there are a bunch of leaders um, who are pretty much on their own. You have Gehlot. These are like all equals in the party. You have Gehlot in Rajasthan, Digvijay Singh, or Kamal Nath in Madhya Pradesh. Then you have Siddaramaiah in Karnataka. You have Revant Reddy in Telangana. Uh, then you have a full-fledged leadership in states like West Bengal also. So all in all, there are a lot of equals, and I think it will be hard for Mr. Kharge to assert when it comes to cleaning up the organization within. How would he do it? How does the leadership of Congress, especially the Gandhis, allow him that clean, tenure of a couple of years to clean up the internal mess? That's something to be where analysts would be watching very closely. But keep this in mind that Mr. Kharge has come to the helm to clean the mess inside, not outside. So he's not. I don't think he's going to. He doesn't even look up to himself like seeing as an open challenger to Prime Minister Modi or even the BJP's leadership like JP Nadda. And I don't think that is his objective. His objective is putting the house in order, bringing important issues to the foray. Uh, Important issues related to unemployment, to farmers issues, and those issues which are more related to bread and butter. I think that is going to see far more resonance with the audience. And I think there are important states which are going into election. I don't see he can do anything much in Himachal and Gujarat, but thereafter you will have Telangana and you will have Karnataka. Both these state units, I mean, they are trying to gear up and act as a proper uh, challenge to the incumbents. How does he steer the ships in these two states would be an important aspect.
Right, right. Very interesting, Rajatji. And I want to come to the elections and some of the states in just a bit. But you mentioned about ideas and ideology, and it reminds me of a reaction when I was looking at some of the reactions that have come in to Mr. Kharge's election. His son actually made a statement where he said that the Congress party is the party that won India its freedom and created the idea of India for Indians and the world. Now, a statement like that makes me wonder if they have learned anything at all. Because as nationalists, I would really like the opposition, a good opposition party that raises meaningful issues. But a statement like that, what how do you look at a statement like that, and what is the mindset that it represents?
I think this is bankruptcy of any ideation in the party. That's a clear reflection of that. The reason Congress is in this mess is because they have hardly anything to show. You look at the most recent two terms of the UPA government. I don't think they are proud of any achievement under their belt for all these 10 years. Otherwise, they would be harping more on it and not going back 75 years and trying to take meaningless credit out of India's freedom movement. That is just bizarre. I mean, none of the young voters of this country relate with this claim of the Congress that they are the ones who are responsible, and their generations after that should be rewarded for that, and we should, stand in queue and revere the party for what a totally different amalgamation of leaders back in those days did for the nation. So that is preposterous. Let them do that. That's more to their harm. Nobody in this country, and I can tell you, I work on the ground. Nobody, uh, barring a very few hardcore supporters, would agree with this position. This is the problem. This is what I'm trying to tell you. They'll bring in these issues. These are the last sort of straws that they can clutch onto. That's number one. Number two is that there is no pertinent issues that they can actually rile the popular sentiments around. What do they go and tell people other than this? So it's bankruptcy of ideas on one side, lack of creativity, and a lack of connect with what the current generation of voters want.
Right, right. Right, Rajatji. Can you also tell us about Mr. Kharge again? His record, his more recent record. Rajasthan. He seems to have been involved, but it didn't turn out very well. Can you explain to our viewers what exactly happened in Rajasthan?
Well, he was involved in Rajasthan. He was also involved in Maharashtra, also trying to save the MPA. He's been there trying to bring in some level of seniority into the rank and file and try to put pressure so that people fall in line. But unfortunately, that did not turn out well. The most recent fiasco was the Rajasthan one. He was the general secretary made in charge for looking at the all MLA meeting, the legislature party meeting, and we all know what happened. First of all, he was coolly retiring in his home ancestral town in Karnataka in Kalaburgi, if I'm not mistaken. He was there. Suddenly, he gets a call from the Congress leadership that he needs to go to Rajasthan, and there was no direct connecting flight to Jaipur. So all he had to do was to take a long, I think, several hours of road trip to Hyderabad, and from Hyderabad he had to wait for long hours to reach Jaipur. So he was all exhausted and tired. I mean, he's an old man that way. No disrespect to the age, but there is only so much that one can do at the age of 82 years. So he traveled to Jaipur all tired. Then he rests for some time at the chief minister's bungalow. And the evening, he was waiting for the party MLAs to show up so that they can have a party's legislature meeting. And while he was inside CM's bungalow waiting for this meeting to happen, nobody showed up. That's the gross embarrassment that he had to face, and he kept insisting on Mr. Gehlot that he's been sent by the Congress leadership to speak to the MLAs and look at the transition plan. But contrary to that, and at the instructions of Mr. Gehlot, none of these MLAs showed up. So you can imagine the amount of moral power that he could bring in, or the de jure power. He was still the general secretary of the Congress party, and it was an embarrassing moment for him. We all knew that how things panned out after that, and there was a considerable erosion on the credibility that he would have brought otherwise. So all
Right.
in all, it's a see, but I personally feel, and this is where if I were to do a deeper analysis, if Mr. Kharge, who's been a long time foot soldier of the Congress party, and he has climbed up the ladder. Okay, there are very few leaders who are self-made leaders in the Congress party. Everybody else, like all the top leaders that you come across, are all either kings and erstwhile royals, or sons and daughters of erstwhile royals. That's the body politic of Congress party. That's the cross section of Congress party. But he was one exception, a Dalit leader, farmer, rose up the ranks. So if he stays true to his roots, he can actually bring in some level of changes in the Congress party. He can reorient the focus to issues that matter. He can bring in a more grounded perspective. He can give voice to leaders who matter in the Congress party, instead of people who have the coterie support, or the support of the Gandhi family alone. And if he can successfully do that for even a couple of years till he remains in that position, that would at least infuse some level of energy. See, he is do not expect him to be a response to Modi ji or Amit Shah. That's a wrong frame to sort of compare. Look at the moribund state that the Congress party is in. It requires some level of creativity, at least in the ideation process. They need to think differently. They need to think more like a grassroots party. They have to stop this attitude where people like Sam Pitroda were trying to give in these elitist ideas which have zero relation or connectivity with the ground issues. That's one ailment that Congress party needs to come out of. Look at the 2019 poll. The biggest problem was that people like Raghuram Rajan and people like Sam Pitroda and all were calling the shots, and they have a very Americanized version or view of this country, and view of the country's problems, and they try to impose that through their manifesto and all of that, which had absolutely no credibility. They came out with this Nyaya scheme, because somebody in the US liberal circles talks about basic income as a human right, and it was a copied idea. Nobody thought that how does such idea relate with, or stoke the emotions of the common public in India. Nobody did that exercise, and they came out with this flagship proposal which would have bled the whole country dry. It was such a disastrous proposal, mooted by none other than Raghuram Rajan. So all these, these folks who had very little grassroots connect, very little on ground work, were calling the shots in the Congress party. If I were to diagnose, and I've seen this over and over again because I look at a lot of state elections and try to analyze them. I have seen in each of these state elections, you see that these paradrop leaders come in. They have no understanding of the grassroots culture. They don't know what the issues have to be raised. Certain professors sitting in JNU, etc., are the close coterie of Mr. Rahul Gandhi. These hardcore leftists, they bring in issues which were 30-year-old issues in the current context. And when they lose the elections, they blame the EVM. The problem is that Congress always wanted. So Shashi Tharoor, in my view, though he is an erudite person, he appeals to the younger audiences much better, but he still lacks that sort of a connect wherein he could do social engineering on the ground, stitch communities together, and pose a formidable defense to the BJP. In my view, among the two, I think Kharge, if he is able to bring in some of his learnings of past 50, 60 years of his political experience to to the surface, if he can do that successfully, he might be better off than Shashi Tharoor. This is my
Right.
opinion in this sense.
Very, very interesting, Rajatji. It sort of also makes me wonder about the larger opposition space in India, because there seems to be a lot of political forces sort of vying for that space within the opposition space. We have Mamata Banerjee, Arvind Kejriwal, who are trying to, make inroads in Goa, in a state like Goa, for example. And then we saw other parties also coming in and throwing their hat into the national, elections and the national political scene. And the most recent, of course, has been, my own state's chief minister, Mr. KCR, and he's sort of refashioning his party from TRS to BRS. Uh, how do you look at this race within various political parties, some of the smaller parties as well? Um I mean, who do you think, might, actually be able to make a difference in that sense?
I think in the next 10 years, nobody can make a significant dent. I mean, it's always too early to predict in politics, but I don't see much happening in the near future. All of these leaders, full of aspiration, are largely in their last stages of their political career, and they would want to create some level of impact in the hope that they could turn out to be the Devegowdas and the Gujrals. That's their best case scenario. That if somehow BJP falls short of the majority mark, they can get every person together, every small or big entity together, and play that unifying force to basically stake a claim for the top post. That's their hope. But if hopes were horses, then wishes were horses. We all know what's going to happen. So I don't see much credibility wise. Aam Aadmi Party is uh, one party which at least has cross state agenda. Uh, I don't think Mamata Banerjee or KCR will have, no matter how they try to reinvent themselves, will have an agenda which is going to appeal to the larger sections of the society and to different states cutting across. That's one problem, one structural problem that they will find themselves wrapped around. um, I think either it could be somebody like Arvind Kejriwal, who would at least want to go in and poke his nose in every state election, and he's free to do that, but he will have that small space which he will keep denting every election. So even if he is able to garner the support of 5 to 6% vote share, that's a good foothold uh, for building the party structure, and holding ensuring that the roots are firmly on the ground in respective states, and the leadership starts getting a space to sort of grow and mature out. So Kejriwal might allow his state units to expand and create some dent, but that will take time.
Right.
It's all going to take at least at least a 5 to 10 year time horizon.
Right.
Nothing short. So
Right.
Nitish Kumar, I mean Nitish Kumar, a lot of people are touting him, and he's trying to play interesting politics around caste. He's like, Kurmis are there in every state. What I have to do is to start positioning myself as a Kurmi leader. UP has 10-11% Kurmis. Bihar has 3-4% Kurmis, and then Kurmis are also Patels in the caste structure. So he's like, all the Patels I should appeal to, and try to carve out this national leader position for the Kurmis of this country. So that's his wish. At least he wants to start with a significant mass, and based upon that, grow his position. Uh, I don't see that these kind of 30-year-old caste politics ideas have any sort of traction in today's India. This is my assertion. You need to have a broad-based agenda. Why Kejriwal, at least he's creating the right noises, is because of the simple fact that he's not touching these caste issues. He's constantly focusing, and in communications also, this is a fine strategy to just pick 2 or 3 agendas and just go carpet bombing on those 3 agendas. That's what Kejriwal does, and he does it pretty effectively. He ensures that he's going to stick to the plan and not deviate even a single bit. So if he has to talk about corruption and education and electricity, he'll just continue doing that. And you look at one of his ministers who tried stepping into the Hindutva related issues, he was kicked out the next day. And rightfully so, because any dilution in his proposition, he will go into direct turf war with the BJP, which will be fatal for his party. So he's keeping himself focused, which is good. He will grow on these issues are which relate with the current generation of voters. And this is the reason, even if he doesn't win seats, those 4 or 5% vote share that he's able to garner is because of this. This is where other leaders like Mamta Banerjee and KCR or even Stalin will not be able to fill the void.
Right. Right.
And for
I
every
think,
default, there is a Congress party, by the way.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very interesting, Rajat. And, about Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party, I think it's very interesting because, like you said, in terms of communication and in terms of also capturing attention of a lot of young people, at least in urban spaces, I think they've uh, had some successes in that. But if one compares them with, let's say, a Congress party, which obviously has a longer history, do you see Kejriwal's politics also having an element of demagoguery, right? Because he seems to be appealing to very narrow and sort of half-informed people or issues, for example, and also has made very problematic statements and aligned his politics in a direction that may not be in the best interest of national security in, for example, states like Punjab, etc. So, do you see that as something that is distinguishing the AAP from the others?
I personally find that, even, I mean, wherever the left cabal has been able to find shelter, they have had uh, deep impact on the psyche of those political parties, be it the Congress, be it Aam Aadmi Party. Wherever these international forces, who are largely globalized, have a very globalized view of India also, are not connected with anything to do with our civilizational values. Those people will steer our country's narrative away from what is in our national interest. That's something which you will see repeatedly. I think Aam Aadmi Party, in its formative years, is trying to basically latch on to issues where it can get relatively easy support without giving a sort of vocal nod to certain things. So you will never see Kejriwal saying anything on Khalistan, for instance. But when you're building an organization, you know that there are popular leaders who would have their own views, but you need those supporters to be part of your party so that you can win seats. Otherwise, these idealistic ideas that you have, that I'm going to change the India's education system, all of that will have traction, but only minimal. Beyond that, how do you win seats? And elections are all about winning. So that's where I think Arvind Kejriwal has not been able to tame his leadership, though he is trying to do that so that the focus remains on his core agenda. I will not judge him too soon. We'll have to very carefully. And by the way, this is not the job of the gullible public at large. It is the job of the intelligentsia, the intellectual community, to keep calling him out for anything that he tries to associate with any breaking India forces. It is us who will have to step in with all our might to ensure that he stops. And that's one way. That's number one. Number two is, where I see more problem with Kejriwal's style of politics is the freebie culture. Uh, that is, I have worked in states and I have worked with the state governments. I was with Jharkhand, with Assam, and with Manipur. All these states I've seen. I've also worked in states like Madhya Pradesh, etc. I can tell you that in general, Indian states are bankrupt states. They have very, very little avenues for generating revenues on their own. They are heavily dependent on tax collections of the center, and rightfully the 42% vote share that has to funnel back to the states. They're heavily dependent on that, but there is very little amount of uh, creative thinking in the economic policies of the states to generate more and more revenue. And this is the reason why most of these states are not able to even process salaries of their employees. Then you have uh, closer to the elections, all of these states, they come out with this bumper job offers that we are going to give government jobs and all, without thinking of the long term economic policy mess that they are going to create. So all in all, on top of that, if for state elections you start promising more and more endless freebies year after year, election after election, where does the state finances end up in? It is, I think, it is the job of, again, the informed citizenry of this country to voice what Prime Minister talked about, reverie politics or reverie economics, that this is not sustainable. I mean, our cumulative public debt to GDP ratios are high. It is definitely high. It is not something which is within our comfort zone. And periodically, we see RBI forgiving the loans of the states. But that should not give the states sort of a power to go out and unabatedly try and win elections by baiting the common people. This is the problem with Kejriwal, where he's trying to look at Delhi as the rest of the country. Delhi is a revenue surplus state. So you can do a lot of these experiments in Delhi, free electricity, free water, all of that. But when you take this model into a heavily debt ridden state like Punjab, it does not work. You will not be able to pay salaries. It is as simple as that. And then people will be on the streets. You will have mayhem everywhere. Does he have a policy response to that? I don't think so. When this question was asked of Mr. Kejriwal, that how are you going to sponsor these freebies that you're talking about? He said, I'm going to stop corruption. And that's the theoretical number that he came up with, that I'm going to generate an additional revenue of 20,000 crores. All that is electioneering related talks. It has zero policy level significance. So individuals like Kejriwal, more than being dangerous, are being foolhardy at this stage, just so that they can cobble up numbers. uh, that experiment, how long it is going to last, I don't know. But at least it has an appeal which cuts across the caste related issues. At least he's given up on that. There is no point harping on it. That
Right.
much consistency is brought in.
Right, absolutely, Rajatji. I think that's a very, very important point, and also especially at a time when there is a global slowdown, and India seems to be one of the only few countries which have and are expected to register good economic growth. I think we shouldn't be squandering away this opportunity because of revenue politics and politics of freebies. And I think this is only going to be increasingly important in the years to come. Rajatji, I also wanted to ask you about the Northeast. Now, you have in your book, The Last Battle of Saraighat, spoken at length about and written at length about how the BJP has expanded its footprint in that part of the country. But since the various governments in the Northeast region have come to power, how do you look at the changes that have been happening there? I mean, in terms of some of the big picture changes, if you have to compare the BJP governments with the governments earlier. What do you think has changed?
Well, a lot has changed, but if I were to sum it up, the sheer number of conversations that are happening on the Northeast have exponentially risen. That in itself is a success. Who in our political discourse ever talked about Northeast? I mean, we have all been, interested in the subject of politics, but it was all limited to state, largely like UP, Bihar, a few South Indian states, and all, and that was it. What Prime Minister Modi's strong political assertion in the Northeast did was that common people started relating with the politics of the Northeast. They started knowing at least about that these are the important states and these are largely important issues. There were certain issues which became national issues. Like CAA was a Northeast related issue. It was an issue of Assam, and it dominated the state's politics all the way from Tamil Nadu till Jammu and Kashmir. So that's a welcome change. At least people are now aware that there is this problem of Bangladeshi illegal migrants which is eating away into the state of Assam. There is trouble vis-a-vis China trying to influence the politics of the Northeast. There is these insurgency groups that were there who are now in talks with the government of India, or have at least come in on peace terms with the government of India. These are positive developments. Who otherwise would have ever engaged politically on these topics? Nobody would have. So just the sheer excitement that younger people have about a very, very important geopolitical part of our country, which was largely ignored for the past 60-65 years. That change, I think, is the biggest takeaway from uh, Prime Minister Modi's politics of the last 8 years.
Absolutely, Rajatji. And I think, like you mentioned, there have been a variety of policy initiatives, including, of course, infrastructure, which I think has received tremendous focus in the Northeast under the BJP government, both at the national level and also the various states. And you can see that when you visit, various states in the Northeast. Uh, in fact, I had the opportunity to visit Guwahati. I was visiting my campus at IIT Guwahati, and I could see a bridge that was not built for all of the time that I was there when I was doing my engineering there. And then suddenly I visited, like, I think a year after the BJP government came to power, and it was done. And I could see the pace at which projects are moving. I think that's a
No,
fantastic.
when I was in IIT, I studied at Kharagpur, and I can tell you that Guwahati seemed really far off. It was like, okay, if you have to choose IIT Guwahati, it seemed like you're going into a place which is like there is violence, there is bloodshed, and all of that. That was the connotation people had. But today, Guwahati is one of the biggest economic engines of our country right now. The amount of development that has happened. If you go around on the GS road, you can't. You will see the energy, the economic activity, the economic buzz in that city, which was all missing. GS road was just empty road. So things have changed remarkably in the Northeast. Then there can be no two opinions on it.
Yeah, and I think you need economic engines like that to uh, pull the rest of the region along with it, and hopefully that Guwahati emerges, like that. Rajatji, before I let you go, one question I had is in terms of the elections. Now, what, in your view, are like the key battleground states in the next 1 or 2 years that will sort of give us clues about the larger political direction of the country?
I think both Karnataka and Telangana elections are the most important elections. Karnataka principally on how does BJP retain a state, wherein you might again see that Congress might try to persuade JDS, and if the two parties go together, it becomes a formidable alliance, so to say. Um, how does BJP try to resolve the leadership change that happened with Mr. Yediyurappa retiring from the chief minister position? How does that void is completely filled by the sitting chief minister how does that board with the normal karyakartas? We've seen certain deaths of Yuva Morcha karyakartas in the state of Karnataka. There was visible angst of BJP's rank and file against its own leadership. How are those tensions resolved in the near future? Uh, those are, I think, important issues, and this is why I say that Karnataka is an important election as to how BJP strategizes and tries to retain that state. The second very important election is Telangana election. Why I see Telangana is that if you go by what happened in 2018, it was like Congress was a formidable force. Then it was at the verge of defeating KCR, but then TRS, and then KCR took it upon himself that he's going to ensure and visit every single constituency on that whirlpool helicopter rides that he went in 2018. He used to visit 10 to 15 constituency in one day, and he used to say that, see, look at this MLA candidate of mine. He's a donkey. I am the real leader. So you're voting for me, not for him. So he had that connect with the public, so much so that he was able to take all the bullets on himself and not allow public angst to go in favor of Congress party. So, in spite of trying hard, Congress party was not able to win the election. And then you have somebody like Revant, who is currently leading the Congress party, who's been with the TDP for a long period of time. There is issues within the Congress party, and I don't think Congress, which was number two, and BJP was a distant number three in 2018, Congress can retain that, even that number two position. We've seen how Mr. Rajagopal Reddy, an important leader from Nalagonda, has now left Congress party and joined BJP, and there is a whole bandwagon of leaders, of prominent leaders in the state of Telangana joining BJP. So for the first time, I think BJP is in a strong, contention to defeat TRS party, and this is what is creating a lot of turbulence in the state of Telangana. You see KCR trying every trick in the game. Why was Bharatiya Rashtra Samiti or BRS, this re-christening of TRS, done? This was a last-ditch attempt to basically confuse the voters, try to imply that he's on a bigger movement or a bigger mission, so that he could cover up some of the anti-incumbency elements that are sharply rising in the state of Telangana. This is the best deflecting mechanism he can do. And he'll keep touring, keep trying to sort of project a larger than life persona of himself, that this is a Telugu leader from Telangana who's rising up to the national politics after a long period of time. Where mostly, I think the Andhra leaders, correct me if I'm wrong, mostly the the current Andhra-based leaders used to dominate the national politics. So he's like coming out with that son of a soil leader who's going to claim central space. All this is a trick to fool the public of Telangana into believing that he's on an important mission and the public should support him. That's his mind game. How does it succeed and how does BJP expose it is all what we will see in the next 6-7 months or so. That is why I believe and BJP's inroads into Telangana would mean that a party which largely their southern journey was largely limited to Karnataka state. If they break into Telangana, then it is going to create a pathway for the BJP to break into even Andhra and into Tamil Nadu and Kerala henceforth. So two state elections are very meaningful.
Absolutely, and I think the one you mentioned, I think the bipolar in Telangana is coming up very soon, and I think that will be a very closely contested battle. And as regard to KCR, I think he's making a lot of attempts, and I think the visual that came to my mind when you talked about him sort of trying to create a space for himself at the national level was his recent visit to Bihar. Where he couldn't even arrive at a consensus with the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar about what is the duration of the press conference that they were giving, and constantly, I think you might have seen that where they couldn't agree on whether they should sit and address the questions or not. I wonder what consensus
He
they will
claims
take.
that he's the architect of the alliance, and
Yeah,
he's trying to play with these messages. And he was speaking apparently in a cabinet meeting that I spoke to Teju means Tejaswi,
right.
that I stitched this alliance and I am the father of this alliance, something on those lines. So he's trying to basically play these mind games, because remember, even his cabinet colleagues are realizing that the ground is shifting. Okay.
Right.
He knows that, and in order to, how does he infuse confidence into a lot? And we've seen how Attila Rajender, he has
Right.
left. He was a right hand man of KCR. He's left the party. There are many more leaders who are waiting to switch sides. And how does he hold on to them? It is
Absolutely.
only through these projections that I'm the one who's calling the shots, not just in the state but also nationally. So
Yeah,
interesting, man. But I like
absolutely.
his survival instincts, the way he's trying to do it.
Right. No, absolutely. I think it's a very interesting time to see how, what, and where his party, his new and refashioned party goes,
Mhm.
both in the state and nationally. Thank you so much, Rajatji. This has been an absolutely amazing and insightful conversation with you. And we hope to have you again to discuss more political developments in India. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajatji, and to our viewers. Let us know what you think and what you expect of the various political developments that we've discussed. And do subscribe if you're new here. Thank you and take care. Namaste.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.